where we as a younger generation really rewire ourselves is when we show up to these ballots, and the fact that we have the privilege of voting from home, right? So like, if you have that, you show up, you have all of the info you need, you know exactly who you're voting for, you can do your own research and figure out who you align with, what you feel is your because I'm not telling you who to vote or nothing. Like, you should know, you know your values, and that's what you got to vote for. But at least know that who you're voting for aligns with your values. That's at least the important thing. We can't just kind of be in this space where we just don't know who we're voting for and we're just putting whoever in there. Because, you know, history tells us that the people who run are people who are white men, and people who, you know, do not have any interest in the people, but so much as an economic interest in their own affairs. You know what I mean? Their loyalty is to their lobbyists. Their loyalty is to the people who fill their pockets. You know, their donors. That's where their loyalty lies. And so we really need to be the generation that comes with this information and knows what we're voting, we know what we're trying to do here. We're not just trying to fill a space. We're trying to elect leaders who care about us and who are going to make a difference in our lives, in our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the other really important thing to remember is that Election Day is just one day of the process. Election Day is when you vote someone into office who you're then going to spend every other day of the year holding accountable.
365.
For you. And what I care about is the environment, or, you know, education or whatever else. And I'm going to keep calling your office and writing letters and visiting on office hours. And I'm going to make sure that you know that I'm holding you accountable, right? Because if we just vote for someone every 4 years, the lobbyists are in their office every single day.
With that cash money. With the cash.
They're showing them really great parties and all of these things. And so it's really important for you to know voting is one day, but the political process is something that we're involved in every day. But when you vote,
essentially,
then you have the right to go to that person and say, I voted for you. What are you doing about these issues that I care about? What are you doing about my people? When you vote for someone, then you have the right to hold them accountable.
Vete. All right, next up we got, are state and local elections important or just the presidential election?
Good question. All right. I know everyone's always focused on the Iron Throne, and we think the presidential election is really important. And yes,
we're so used to like monarchies, like our consciousness, like everything is like monarchical. Like we have like one person that has all the power, and then everyone else is just kind of like for that person. But that's not the case, guys. We live in a democracy.
We do. And you know that it's the media spends all of their time talking about the presidential candidate. You know, it's the one office that represents everybody in the country, you know, and vice president. Like, so it makes sense. You know, they live in a great house. But the fact is, the people who make the real decisions about your everyday life, when we're in an emergency like now, and also every day, are state and local elected officials, right? When they're deciding on what's happening in your schools and your bus routes, and who gets a liquor license, and what does your state health insurance look like, and, you know, there's so many issues. When they decide who gets to have fiber optic networks and who's still using dial-in or data at home, you know, every single decision that is local to you is who you're voting for when you're voting for state and local elected officials. When you're thinking about who's being arrested, right, and who the sheriffs are, and who's sitting in your county jails and your state jails, that's all local. That's all local. And so it's really important to understand not only that those elected officials matter, but that when we think about voting, we always think about, you know, oh, well, it's 66 million people or whatever are going to vote for president, and my vote is only one. But when you're looking at the mayor or the city council or the sheriff, depending on the size of your town or your county, you're going to be one of a few hundred or a few thousand or, you know, a few tens of thousands of people voting. Your vote is really going to matter. You would be amazed by how often these elections come down to a tie.
One vote.
Or won by 1 or 2 votes. All of the time.
The 2016 presidential election.
There were actually a lot of typos. Actually, the entire partisan balance, which means whether Democrats or Republicans are in charge, of the entire Virginia state legislature came down to a tie in one district, and they drew names out of a hat. That happened in 2017. So it's
Is that
really
that's not a democratic guys, we're at a point where we're drawing names out of hats.
It happens all over.
Please show up.
Or they'll roll a die, or states have all sorts of different ways and counties that they will decide on elections. So
I have a headache. I have a headache from that statement. I have a headache. I have an oncoming headache. Just a bunch of like white men like rolling a dice, like, who should we elect? Like,
yep.
Bruh,
yeah.
No.
That's kind of what it is. Yeah. So yeah, those local elections, they matter. The things you care about, right? I mean, if you think about where we are right now, the president is not deciding what city and states are choosing to reopen and who's saying restaurants can be open and who's saying that people have masks and who's deciding whether or not people experiencing homelessness are going to have hotel rooms to sleep in or parking lots. That's local elected officials.
Amen.
That's mayors, that's governors, that's boards of supervisors. Those are the people who run the county. It's local officials who
Amen.
make those decisions. So those elections, they are critical. They couldn't be more important.
Amen. And even we're seeing now, like with this whole handling of the COVID situation, like, I find that Trump likes to deflect blame often, but he specifically is deflecting blame onto state officials. And if that doesn't, like the fact that he can, in the midst of a crisis, separate himself as the quote unquote leader and be like, well, it's up to your states to take care of you. It's the states, the states are the ones who have the power. The states are the ones. I just find it interesting that, it's all about the president and his power up until, it comes down to handling shit. Then all of a sudden it's the people's problem. And all of a sudden it's a local issue, and all of a sudden, oh well, sorry, we're tapped out federally. It's like, yeah, because you took care of all the major corporations instead of your people. That's why you're tapped out with our tax dollars. So it's so important, because even like filling out your census, you know what I mean? Like that determines how much of the federal funds you're going to get sent to your own state for then your state officials to disperse. You know what I mean? Like essentially it's like a bank, it's like a label, it's like a whatever, it's like middlemen all the way down, trickle down economics that ends up in a space where you end up with the least, if you are the least active, if you are the least motivated, if you think that you are unimportant, that's what the system will reiterate to you, is that you are unimportant. Because if you don't register yourself, if you don't participate in a quote unquote democratic process, which I'm skeptical about anyway. I just believe there's so much corruption in the United States. And I told Kat this before we even got on the phone. I was like, I'm a skeptical ass bitch. Like, just so you know, I do not trust this government as far as I can throw them, because I don't trust liars. I don't trust liars. But that's the point, is that we need to be mindful of who we're electing. We need to educate ourselves about the process. We need to educate ourselves about what we can do, in the midst of this, like, feeling so helpless of I can't do anything, everything's out of my control, and the rich just keep getting richer and the poor just keep getting poorer, and we're just headed towards whatever we're headed towards in that kind of regard, you know what I mean? And we're increasingly in a fascist regime right now, and so it's just one of those things where we have to be mindful of, if we have due process left, at least the little bit that we have left, we need to take advantage of it, and we need to show up exponentially if we want to show these leaders who do not have our best interest at heart that we care about the fact that they don't have that at heart. And we're seeing it, and we're going to call it out, and we're not going to vote for you. Actually, we're not going to put our energy towards you. We're going to align ourselves with people who actually care about us.
Well said. I have nothing to add.
Period. All right, so what will voting look like during COVID? Perfect little segue. Vote from home!
It depends, on whether or not we've got a cure or a zombie apocalypse. I think it's probably going to be a zombie apocalypse. I think there are a few things.
That's what it's looking like. Sure. It's pretty much rounding out to be that.
Pretty much. That's right. I've been practicing. I'm ready. I think there's a few things that we know for sure. So we know for sure that there's going to be a lot more voting at home, right? And there are states like my state of California, which has already said, look, we're just going to send a ballot home to everybody.
But who is everybody?
Every registered voter in the state of California. They're just automatically sending a ballot. so that we can reduce the number of people who go to polling places, right? So we know there's going to be a lot more voting at home, which is great. We know that there are people who can't vote from home. There are people who have disabilities who maybe don't have a home. For people experiencing homelessness, getting a ballot mailed to them, not a thing that's always possible. There are elderly folks. There are people for whom they have to go to polling places. And so one of the things we know is that by trying to keep as many people away from the polls as possible, then the people who absolutely have to vote in person can do so more safely. And we can also protect poll workers who are wonderful people. My mom's always a poll worker. And all day volunteering, helping people vote, and we want to protect them as well. So we know that there will be a lot of measures to try to make sure that people who have to vote in person are safe, and that as many people as possible vote from home to keep them safe. And then I think that we also know that there are things that are, like counting mail-in ballots takes a lot longer than counting ballots from electric machines and things like that, right? So we also really want people to vote earlier. The great thing about voting by mail is that you don't have to wait till election day. You can vote, depending on the state, they'll send you the ballot, but you usually have at least a month. You have a really long time, and so it helps the state be able to process things more quickly, because those are essential employees who are going to be forced to work rather than being able to stay at home and shelter in place. So being able to vote earlier and being able to vote from home is going to help the people, both who are working really hard to keep this process going, as well as people who have to go to the polls in person.
Amen. Oíste? So register.
Yes, register to vote. Request a mail-in ballot if you can at all. And I think those will be two really big ways that we help this process move forward as smoothly as possible.
And to make sure that it happens, I think is really important too. Because I think that's, like, we need to, I don't know, I personally am fearful because they just kind of like keep bending rules according to what they decide is important. So I want to, like, I feel like voting from home and via mail is also like a surefire way to make sure that we get, like, we can, you know what I mean, vote on that day, and that we don't have to like postpone that or do anything to like jeopardize making sure our democratic process is still intact for whatever it's left of it.
Yeah, for sure. One very good thing it's good and bad. The founding fathers, for some reason, decided we should vote in November, where it's absolutely freezing cold for like 60% of the states.
But that sounds about right. Sounds about right.
The good thing is that the election day it's a constitutional day, right? So changing that would require massive forces that nobody right now thinks are going to be mobilized in order to move election day. So I think that happening there's a very, very low chance of that happening. I think, though, that what will happen is that state governments will make very late decisions about things like whether or not they should send everyone a mail-in ballot, right? California decided that a little while ago, way ahead of time, because we
love a progressive state.
It's a progressive state, and they're also just a crap ton of people, and like printing out all those things and getting them mailed is going to take a long time. Yeah. But I think, if you're waiting and you're thinking, oh well, my state's probably going to decide to just mail all of us a ballot and then it'll just get here. Well, they may wait a really long time to decide that.
Be proactive.
So being proactive is going to guarantee that you get that ballot instead of maybe your governor, and maybe your governor decides a month ahead of time, and then they get sued by the state legislature, and then they have to go to court, and then a week ahead of time the courts are like, yeah, you can send everyone a ballot, and now you've got a week. So being proactive is going to make sure that it comes, even if something else, even if your state makes a late decision. And that's really, I think, what's going to be really important is just making sure you get that ballot in your hands, because the election is, it's going to happen unless the world is collapsed and we're in a dystopian society.
Because we're not? Because we're not? We're not in a...
Instagram. We'll be in a true dystopian society when social media has fallen apart.
Do you think so? I don't know, man. I think that the social media, personally, I feel like the social media just kind of like puts the blanket over the wool. You know what I mean? It's like, because it's illusion.
and it's the best thing I've ever done.
Yo, I gave up Twitter last year, and it was fantastic.
I have like a new brain. It's crazy.
I respect that.
I have a new brain.
I respect that.
Yeah,
all right, so next question. How do you choose the right candidate? Like we were talking about earlier, it's so hard to like
it is.
sort through all of these horrible people.
It's hard. So first of all, look, politicians are politicians, right? 99% of them are just terrible people. And one of the things that's important is choosing the least terrible person according to your values and then holding them accountable, right? Like that's what's important, because they're all humans, you know.
And we are infallible.
There's a lot of money and fame and power being thrown at them. It's hard to do the right thing. Watch Mr. Smith.
Is it hard to do the right thing when you have a lot of money, fame, and power thrown at you?
It's really hard to do the right thing, and I know this because most people don't do it, so it must be hard.
It's not hard. I'm someone who does it. It's not hard. It's all about comfortability. That's what it is.
Yeah, well, and look, we're weak. You know, I don't know. I never had people try to throw money and power at me. I don't know how I would react. I reckon people, please try. Throw money and power at me. Let's see how I do.
Let's try it out.
Let's just see. Let's just experiment.
My Cash App is...
But, you know, so one thing that's important is to say, all right, look, these two people, nah. But one of them, you know, wants to commit genocide against
one of them is
people.
Promising.
Right, and the other one, you know, they don't really have a great education plan, but they don't want to kill me, you know. And hey, 2020, those are often our options. But choose the person who you think is best according to your values, and then keep pushing them. You know, now how do you find out who that person is? So there are a lot of different ways. One great thing about social media is that every politician is on it now, and they're constantly tweeting, and many of them do not have good staff who stop them from tweeting. So it's often very possible to find out who that person really is.
Via their Twitter? I mean, Donald Trump's is very telling.
Yes, we have a president who loves to tweet, for better or worse, depending on what side of
always for worse. Always for worse. Such a disaster.
And so, you know, you can do things as simple as follow them on social media. They're going to talk about the issues. They're going to talk about how they feel about COVID-19. They're going to talk when there's a school shooting. They're either going to be someone who says, "Oh, thoughts and prayers," or they're going to be someone who says, "This is fucking bullshit. We need to change this." Right? So that's one place. There are things called voter guides or election guides, which tons of organizations put together, and they say who they recommend. Or
start that again, babe. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So there are things called voter guides or election guides that a lot of organizations put out that tell you which candidates they endorse, they support, based on their views of that particular issue. So, for instance, if you really care about the environment, then you might want to go to the Sierra Club and see what they say about candidates, because they're looking at candidates through an environmental lens. Or if you're young, you might want to go on Rock the Vote, and Rock the Vote makes election guides, and they're specifically asking about youth issues. Or you might want to go to Moms in Action and see who does Moms in Action support, because they're looking at the lens of gun violence and trying to stop gun violence. So you can think about, what are the issues that I really care about? And you can really just Google, you know, if you Google, you know, LGBTQ rights and elections, you know, or election guide, you're going to get different organizations that have put up their own endorsements for candidates and their own descriptions about candidates based on the issues that you care about. And that's a really good way to see, oh, you know what, I am a teacher, or my mom's a teacher and she's in the NEA, and we think that teachers' rights are really important. And so I'm going to see who the NEA is supporting or endorsing, because I want to vote for someone who's pro-teachers like the NEA. And so those election guides are really helpful. They can be helpful. Now, they can be a little confusing. Some organizations are not good at writing language simply. So, you know, sometimes it may not be as easy to read. But if you keep looking, you will figure it out. And usually they're pretty simple. And then the last thing that I would say is talk to people you trust who hold the same values, whether it's your parents or, you know, a teacher, or, you know, someone at church, or, you know, your mentor or uncle or whatever. you know, if there's someone
Oh my
who
God.
you trust, who you know sort of sees the world the same way that you do, and maybe they're a little older and have voted a little bit, you could talk to them and say, hey, what do you think about this person? Now, it's important to note, very few people know a lot about voting because it's pretty complicated. And so your uncle may be like, I don't know, or they may say, you know, if they say, well, according to my friend on Facebook, just stop listening.
No. Don't take third-party information. Go do your own research.
Anyone who's getting their news from Facebook. But,
Also,
you know,
guys,
talk
I'm
to
just
people.
a little quick pause. It just literally started hurricaning in my backyard, like
Oh my gosh.
torrential rain. Like,
Tropical storm.
what the heck? That's why I just jolted the way that I did. It like thundered and lightninged very, very vividly. The lightning was right here in my back. That was really scary. And excuse me, I'm so sorry to have interrupted.
No.
But
Weather related emergency.
yeah, weather update.
Yeah, so I hope that's helpful.
Incredibly helpful. I'm sorry, I kind of super distracted at the end of that. But yeah, that's incredibly helpful. Is definitely, first of all, do your research. Do your own research is the first thing I'm going to encourage. Don't listen to anybody. Listen to your own intuition and your own your own ability to discern and critical think about what's important to you, like she said. Definitely figure out what issues you're passionate about. Figure out how, like, what are the things that you care about changing or being better, like just whatever it is that you care about, like go and look that up. And then like she said, the resources. So when I post this on my IG main feed or whatever, when this is done, I'm going to put a number there that you guys can text. It's the community that app that I have for everyone in the US. It has accessibility to it. I'm going to put the number there, and I'm going to be sending you guys a text message with different voting resources. Just like, first of all, at the end of this, we'll also have a way that number you guys can text so that you can get your ballot sent to you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm also going to be texting you guys specific information, just like extra guides that can help you. And I'll do that throughout this process until election day so that you guys can have some tangible resources and don't necessarily have to do too much looking. But definitely, again, still do your own research. I'm just a person. I'm one other person. I know whatever, celebrity, whatever, but I'm just a person. So I'm just as infallible as anyone else. So make sure that you do your own research.
Yeah, and that's a good note. Like, Lauren is amazing, and I love her, but don't listen to celebrities, you guys, because they're first of all,
A lot of them are part of the agenda, first of all.
right? They don't have PhDs in political science or anything. Like many celebrities I see on the news, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about, and you're a great actor, but like you're not an expert on nuclear non-proliferation. What are you doing? And I just totally messed up that word. So like celebs are great for certain things, but you may not want to find out like all of your news from like your favorite celeb's Instagram channel. So
Yeah.
definitely some critical thinking on your own, and then like go listen to a song or watch a movie with your favorite celeb in it, and then like research the experts when you're looking into like climate.
And that's also not to deflect the fact that a lot of celebrities can go out of their way and educate themselves and have valid opinions, because we are also people that can educate ourselves and have valid opinions. Or connection. Are we back? Oh, my connection's cutting out. I hope you guys can still see me. But so yeah, not to invalidate the fact that, you know, obviously people can be educated outside and also be an artist, but like it is important again to do your own research and to find experts on topics and make sure that you deep dive and don't just take what other people say at face value. Especially not on the fucking internet, because this place is a madhouse. Anyways, let's see. Next question. How did it feel the first time you voted?
Do you want to answer that question?
Am I answering this question? The first time that I voted, I was a little bit of a wreck. I was very excited. Like, I felt so grown up being able to go to my precinct and like walk in. Like, I had a t-shirt on. My nipples were showing. It was great. I loved it. I loved the fact that I was doing that as I went to go vote. So I did that and I voted and I felt so American. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. It was not an American process, but I did feel powerful. I felt like, wow, my voice matters. I have a say in what happens in the world. And granted, again, the voting is a very small part. It's a one-day part of the process of having your voice heard. So I learned that very quickly as well.
Yes, for sure. Actually, the first time I voted, I was in, I think, the 5th grade, and my mom always took us out of school to go to polling places to vote, and I got to bubble in the circle for president because I was the oldest. And it was super exciting because, A, I was very young, but also because it was like, you know, I understood, she talked to us about like what it meant to like go in there and to choose your leaders and to like make decisions on important issues, and then you like bubble in next to the name, and then that person won. And so then I was like, oh, I totally did that, and it was really exciting, and it really made me so thrilled for when I was 18 and could vote.
I love that your mom did that.
Yeah, it was really smart of her. And
I
now,
really love that.
We vote all the time.
Yeah, she normalized it, and she validated its importance. That's really beautiful.
Yeah, she did a pretty good job.
Let's go, Mom. Mama Calvin. I don't know her last name.
Yeah, is there another question?
Yeah, next question is, how does vote by mail work, and is it safe? We kind of touched upon that, but just to reiterate, I think would be important.
Yeah, so I vote by mail, simple process. You go online, and remember, not every state has this, so you're going to be able to sort of text Lauren's number at the end and find out if your state has it.
I got you. I got you.
Don't have it, will have it as the year keeps going, so pay attention. But you go online, you register to vote by mail. Depending on the states, you know, some you have to send in a form or whatever, but you do what you have to do. They send you a ballot, you vote, you mail it back. So it's pretty simple.
Okay, I got off the Wi-Fi. This should work. This should work. We're back, guys. Sorry, there's a literal freaking tropical storm outside. Like,
Yeah.
as if the world isn't casually ending. As if. All right, we're back. So as you were saying.
Yes. So requesting absentee ballot, pretty simple. As for the safety question, so it's a really good question. There have been a lot of studies about voter fraud and whether or not they exist. And what they found is that voter fraud exists in, and I'm going to see if I get all the zeros right, 0.0000001% of all mail-in ballots that are sent in. So it is an almost non-existent issue. We have billions and billions of ballots that go out, and like 491, I think is the number, have been fraudulent in some way. So as far as voter fraud, it's not a problem that we have seen in any way. We have a lot of safeguards up. It's not a massive issue. You know, people aren't breaking into big buildings, stealing a bunch of ballots and filling them all out and then mailing them back. Like, it's not happening.
I mean, that happened in Florida, so.
Well,
that did happen. There was a bitch in Florida that did that.
There's a lot of shade, but it is a very small percentage of what happens.
There's only a little bit of crazy people out there.
Well, you know, Florida. So then, on the other end, when you mail in your ballot, again, the chances of it not being counted. So if it's not counted, it's usually for a reason like your signature doesn't match the signature of your voter registration card, or there's an instruction that you maybe have to have a witness in some states and you didn't get someone else to sign, or things like that. Maybe you messed up the ballot in some way.
But even the signature one, though, just for me as someone, like, I know that my signature when I was 16 is very different from my signature now.
Yes, and so it's really important that you check all the rules, that you check what your voter registration, if you still have your card, or sometimes it's online, what your signature looks like, that you sort of double check those things. There is still a very low possibility of it getting thrown out, but the possibility increases if you're not looking to make sure you're following the rules. So you do want to check the mail-in ballot and maybe read the website and make sure, that you're not filling in the ballot with a purple pen if they say black or blue ink only, right? Which matters. It's like the SAT, like they
read instructions.
Exactly.
We love to
So
read, right? Critical thinking, reading, we love it.
Yes. Critical thinking is, I just want to plaster it on everybody's forehead in America. Please start critical thinking. But it's a lot. And you get these ballots, and there's a lot going on, and it can be really confusing. I get that, but that's another reason having it at home, being able to really calmly look at it and read the instructions carefully, Google the instructions if you need to, is going to be helpful, because that's doing those things right is going to be the best way of making sure that your vote gets counted.
All right, so okay, this is a good one because this is happening in Florida, right? The last election that we had locally, we reinstated felons, formerly incarcerated people's right to vote. Mm-hmm. And obviously the government's been working double time to undo that, because that would expose first of all, it's a whole new populace basically that is allowed to vote, because a lot of people have gotten their right to vote taken away unconstitutionally, in my opinion. But so yeah, let's get into that. Like, are ex-felons allowed to vote? What does that look like? How do we, because here's the thing for me is, like, we say ex-felons, right? Or we say incarcerated people. But I just feel like in a system where we have a very well-known prison industrial complex that is racially biased, who is it really whose voice is being taken away? And how is it that that's affecting the way that leaders are elected? How is it that that's affecting the way that district attorneys are elected, that sheriff officials are elected? You know what I mean? Like, who has a say in what's happening versus who's experiencing what's happening? You know what I mean? Yeah. So I want to get into that a little bit.
All right, well, we could talk about this for like 3 hours, but I'm going to break down a couple of things that we can dive in. So one thing that's really important to note is that, first of all, the vast majority of people who have been in jail or prison for some reason did not commit and be convicted of a felony, okay? So the vast majority of those people can vote. If we have hundreds of thousands of people in this country who are in jail because they couldn't make bail.
Amen.
Right? Haven't been convicted of anything. Sometimes they're there for a year just because they couldn't make bail.
Amen.
All of those people can vote. The majority of folks who have been convicted have been convicted of misdemeanors. Those people can vote, and you can vote from jail. And Spread the Vote is actually working on a program right now to help people in jail vote this year.
That is so
because
important.
You can vote from jail if you haven't been convicted or if you've only committed a misdemeanor. So it's really important for you to know that. And then when you've been released, you can still vote. It was never taken away. So that's important, and that's everywhere.
That is super important. I want to reiterate that real quick. Yes. If you have been to jail, okay, and you did not, first of all, you were unrightfully there. That's the first one. If you did not commit a felony, if whatever you were charged or convicted of, even if if you are not officially convicted of a felony, you have the right to vote. It was never taken from you. It is still yours, and I want you to know that. And I know that a lot of people who have been through that system obviously foster a very deep disbelief in the system. But I really want you to know that you matter. First of all, you matter. You're a valid human being, and a mistake should not ever define you for your entire life, especially one that was nonviolent, especially one that was not a quote-unquote felony, even though we all know some felonies are just ridiculous. And it's also about who gets punished for these quote-unquote crimes versus who gets to evade these crimes, which is also a huge thing in this country. So I just want you to know you're valid, and your vote matters, and your vote counts. And actually, your voice is so important because you are the one who has experienced this. You know what this is, and you know the kind of the way that your particular city or state deals with incarcerated population or deals with the way funds are distributed in these circumstances. So be active and have your voice heard. You're not on the wayside, and you are valid. Like, you are allowed to do this.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that's really important to know. Now, the second important thing to know is if you were convicted of a felony, when you are released and you're off paper, first of all, this varies by state, right? Like, if you live in Vermont, you can still vote no matter what.
There you go.
Most states, once you're off papers, you can vote. In some states, like Tennessee, makes it very, very, very difficult for people who committed felonies to vote. And so, you can ping Spread the Vote, and there are local organizations that can help you with that. And then there are states like Florida where we don't actually know because there's a big court case happening right now, and so we'll find out sometime in the next few months when you can vote. But it really varies. So a lot of people think, oh, I committed a felony, I can never vote. First of all, in most states, that's absolutely not true. You can vote in most states at some point from the moment you're released to the moment you're off papers, depending on the state. And then in other states, there's varying degrees of difficulty, but it's really important for you to look into what is actually the case in your state, because there are maybe there are very, very few states, like a couple of states where they're going to make it almost impossible for you to vote. The vast majority of states in this country, you can vote at some point once you're released, depending on what part of that process. And so,
let me guess, it's harder in the South, right?
Some southern states. I'm a big fan of the South, but Vermont is very easy. But it depends. In Tennessee, we've worked a lot with folks trying to get their rights back in Tennessee. And I know it's a very tough state, but for most of them, at some point you can. So, we work with and help a lot of people get their rights restored who just were told and believed, or maybe just believed because given the country that we're in, it seems likely that once you were in jail, you could never vote again. And that's almost always not the case. You almost always can. And so it's really important to seek out that information and find out, can I vote? And when you can, at whatever point in that process you need to get to register, because just like Lauren said, you know these issues. You know who these people are. You know what the system is like, and you are the ones whose voices really matter to be able to help us change it.
Amen. Amen. You guys are so important. And I feel like, like I was saying to Kat earlier, we have this obsession as a society with true crime shows and just this obsession with crime and justice and all of this stuff. But very rarely systematically do we see, people that are being criminalized actually be, dangerous criminals. Most of the dangerous criminals are running amok and running the government, to be honest. So we're at that kind of place where we have to I think we need to change the narrative about the way that we view, those who have been incarcerated. There are so many different reasons why people get incarcerated, and there are so many more exceptions than there are people who are in there because they deserve it. You know what I mean? There are so many more people in there because of a technicality, because of a racial profiling, because of poverty, because of homelessness, because of life circumstances putting them in an inopportune moment. You know what I mean?